Hey, welcome to the Stephanie Stevens Show, where I help you discover the power of communication and the keys that unlock the doors to freedom in every area of your life. Hi, my dear sweet friend. Thank you so much for allowing me to spend some time with you today. I have something special for you. It's a story. And the reason I wanted to offer you a story today is because our podcast here is about change and about communications, becoming an expert in communications, because communication is the key that unlocks the doors to freedom in pretty much every area of your life. If you can communicate effectively what you think, what you want, what you need, what you are able to contribute, I'm not sure what could stop you. Here's a thing that's very interesting about our brains as we get to know our brains better. You will know that you have a conscious mind, which allows you to think consciously, and then you've got an unconscious mind, which swirls around in the background, taking care of just about everything that your conscious mind can't process or handle in the moment. And it also collects as a data file everything that's ever happened to you over the course of your time here, and maybe even beyond. So it's a record keeper. It files away in the unconscious portion of the mind every word you've ever said or heard, everything you've ever seen, every situation you've ever been in, every experience you've ever had in your entire life. It is all in your mind. Is that crazy? It's all there. Now, whether we can access that portion of our mind to recall it, now that's another story. Some people are better at that than others, but it's all there and it's all on record in your brilliant database. You see, our unconscious mind speaks in the language of metaphor. So there are stories that can be content-free that will allow you and your brilliant unconscious mind to identify with exactly whatever change it is that you want to make, and will utilize the content and the character in the stories to create that change. Is that totally incredible? So I wrote a story, it's a metaphor, and I want to share it with you today. So I don't know if you're driving in your car, maybe you're walking, maybe you're sitting down with a cup of coffee, or maybe you're just heading off to bed. You could be doing a million different things. It really doesn't matter. Your mind will take in and absorb all of this, every word that I say, because remember, you've got your conscious mind listening, kinda. Maybe your conscious mind is picking up about 20% of what I say, but your unconscious mind, my friend, is picking up every single solitary word and can utilize this to really help you in any arena of your life that you wish to change. So my offering to you today is take a deep breath, listen to this in the background to think of one thing that you would really like to change. And maybe it's something happening in your body. Maybe it's a diagnosis. Maybe it's an issue or a problem or a pain. Maybe it's a situation, a person, place, or thing. It really doesn't matter. Just select one thing today. Take a deep breath and just kind of relax and let your mind take in the story. And this is the story of the visitor. You see, one day, a visitor arrived at the door of the woman in the cottage. It was a sunny day. The woman was curious. So upon hearing the knock, she went to open the door. As the door opened, the morning sunshine flooded in like a bright halo silhouette of the visitor standing at the entrance. As the woman greeted the visitor with a smile, the visitor seemed especially warm and friendly. Although the woman did not recall ever having met the visitor before, they seemed somehow remarkably familiar, as though the two of them had known each other for many moons. The visitor asked if they might be invited inside for a moment, and the woman was enchanted and curious by the visitor, who seemed comfortably familiar. So she opened the door wide and welcomed the visitor into her worn but cozy, comfortable cottage. She offered the visitor a cup of tea, but the visitor was not there for tea. The visitor told the woman to feel free to busy herself by making a cup of tea, so she did. While she gathered her items and poured the water into the teapot, the visitor began making their way through the cottage, slowly, from room to room. Floating, as if gliding across the floor, the visitor went to the first room and noticed things that were out of place, things that did not belong to the woman, that she had somehow collected over the course of time. The visitor gently and thoroughly picked up each item off the floor, slowly and methodically, picking up each item, and that item over there, and the item over in that corner there, and the item in front of the room, and the item just behind the visitor. And the visitor placed the items in a satchel on their back. First came the items off the floor, and then the visitor began removing all the spots from all of the walls and even shined and polished each and every window. Room by room, space by space, item by item, each and every little speck, spot, and out-of-place item was gathered and collected by the visitor and placed in the satchel on their back. As they moved about the house, the woman noticed that the home began to feel brighter, as though the windows had been opened. The walls felt wider. The rooms seemed to expand, and the walls began to appear to be a new, bright, wonderful, and vibrant color. The woman felt as though she could breathe easier and even see clearer in these rooms. As the teapot began to sing, the woman called to the visitor to see if they wanted to join her in the center room shortly for a warm and soothing cup of tea. The visitor assured her that they would be with her in that space shortly, but had not yet completed the work they had come there to do. So the woman settled into that center space in her warm and cozy cottage while the visitor made a thorough inventory of each and every room, each and every space, each and every corner and hallway, and inspected every window to be certain that it was clean and clear. And the more the visitor cleaned, the brighter the rooms became, and the brighter the rooms became, the lighter they felt, and the lighter they felt, the easier it became, and the easier it became, the better the woman felt. The woman noticed another something that she hadn't noticed before. She looked from the center of her space and called to the visitor, "You've done a wonderful, magical thing here today, haven't you?" The visitor smiled, gathered the very last remaining item from each and every room and space, and placed them securely in the satchel on their back. The visitor then answered the woman in a very mysterious way. They said, "Do you realize that you beckoned me here? I've been waiting for quite some time for the invitation, and little did you know, when you called for me in your sleep, I was closer than you thought." The woman knew what the visitor said was true. She asked the visitor, "What will you do with those items you've collected?" The visitor turned to leave and replied, "That's not nearly as important, my friend, as what you choose to replace those items with today." The woman knew that all of those cleaned up and tidy spaces that the visitor had taken had changed her in many powerful ways. She knew those items did not belong to her anymore, and that her home would never be the same. It was that day that the woman decided to turn her cottage into a castle. Thank you for listening, my friend. As you take a deep breath and as your mind processes whatever change you wish to make, and as you take a deep and cleansing breath, may your once cottage become a brand new castle. Can't wait to connect with you on the next episode. Thanks so much for listening to The Stephanie Stevens Show. Please remember to subscribe so we can stay connected and you never miss an episode of the podcast. Oh, and if you haven't left a rating yet, please be sure to do so. It helps incredible people like you find the podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.